Dear users of BSC Designer, dear partners, I'd like to share some information about some new features that we have added in BSC Designer so that you can learn more about new opportunities that you have, new ways to create your scorecards, to manage with your scorecards and indicators in BSC Designer. First of all, most of these features are related to usability, and they're making your experience with BSC Designer much more pleasant, and you'll be able to solve your typical tasks way easier than you did it before. First of all, let's try creating some new indicator. You do it as you did it before, and one thing that you will notice is that a new indicator does not have any data in the performance and progress columns. Why? Because when you created this indicator, we think that this indicator is empty. This indicator does not have any data, so the software does not have enough information to calculate its performance or progress. If you want the software to start calculating something, you just start entering some value here, for example, and you see that these columns, the values in the performance and progress column, is now calculated. So it's just a very small, but we hope it's very effective way to explain the idea that this indicator is not yet an indicator when you have just created it, and it needs some data. Another thing that you might have noticed is that this indicator has a certain update interval used by default. Right now, this indicator has a monthly update interval. You can always customize this update interval via initiatives. Have here initiatives, update interval, and you can customize it here according to your needs. We decided to make a monthly update interval to be a default update interval, because I hope you remember before it was a daily update interval, but most indicators on the strategy scorecard and your KPI scorecard are not updated daily. They're updated monthly. And we decided to introduce this by default, this interval to be used by default, this monthly interval. If in your case, your data is updated, for example, weekly or daily, and you need all new indicators to be updated weekly or daily by default, you can customize it. You can go to Tools, Application Options, KPIs, and here you have an option, Default Update Interval, which you can use to customize to select an interval that will be used by default. For example, if you want it to be weekly, we change it, and now all new indicators are created with this update interval. Let me repeat, it affects only the interval that is used by default. So for any indicator, you can change this interval according to your needs. Now, another feature, I hope you remember that before, when you needed to create some data indicators, let's say some raw data that actually was not an indicator, you still had this data on your scorecard. And for example, I'm entering here some raw data, and I'm having this data on my scorecard. This is not always what you want to achieve, because, for example, this is not an indicator. This is a raw data that you just want to have here in the software. You want to have here like 46, 43, or 32, but you don't want the software to calculate the performance and progress using this data. And before, you had an option called ignoring formulas. Ignoring formulas. Right now, the function is still there. It is working in exactly the same way as it did before. The only difference, before, when you mark some indicator, some item as an ignored formulas, it was just striked out here, and its value was not taken into account when the performance of the whole scorecard was calculated. Now the functionality is exactly the same. The only difference is that indicators that are ignored in formulas are visualized as indicator without any data in performance and progress column. The logic is simple. If this is not an indicator but just some kind of raw data that you want to use to calculate certain indicator, for example, then you don't have enough data to calculate performance and progress. So you have your value here, 43 or 32, but it is not taken into account when software is calculating the performance and the progress of the whole scorecard directly, I mean. And what you can do, for example, you can use this raw data 1 and raw data 2 to calculate the value of this data indicator. We can use, for example, formulas. It's disabled. We need to use a self-standing container value. And we can use formulas and use it like raw data 1 plus raw data 2. Now, these two indicators are now involved in your scorecard, but they are involved using this intermediate indicator. So they are not involved directly. These two items are just data that is not involved in the calculation of the performance directly. Now, moving ahead, we have also improved a little bit the way you deal with update intervals. Before, if you had many indicators, you had to update them one by one, and it was not really comfortable because you had to enter here in initiatives, here's update interval, change it to, let's say, monthly. Okay, the second indicator, update interval again. Now, the first improvement is that I mentioned before. For all new indicators, you can specify the default update interval that you want them to use. And another improvement in that you can apply a certain update interval in bulk. So you can, let's say, select here monthly update interval and select indicators that you want to apply this indicator to. For example, I want to apply a monthly update interval to KPI 2 as well as to KPI 5 and to KPI 6. Click OK. And what we have here for KPI 5 or KPI 6, we have monthly update interval, and KPI 4 is still daily update interval. So another way that will help you with keeping your indicators up to date and making it easier to update your data. Now, you might have noticed that you have another column here, which is called update status. This column is used to inform you about how your indicators are updated, if they are updated on time or not. Let me share some example. So I'm recording this video in January, and I can enter here some value, for example, 12. And now, take into account that today is January, and I have entered my data here, 12. So this indicator is updated on schedule. Let's say that I'm entering here in edit values and I'm removing this update. And what I see here is now is it's this indicator, its update status, that is never was updated. Imagine if you had an indicator and you had updated it only in November of the previous year. As you can see, the update status column, now I can move it here. So update status column is now not updated on time, because what we have updated, the last time that we have updated this indicator was in November, and now is January. So I'm updating it in December, let's say 12. What the software tells us now is that we need to update this indicator today, because let me show it. We have selected that this indicator needs to be updated monthly on the 23rd day of the month. So today is 23rd of January, and the software tells us that we need to update this indicator today. Update today. Let's give it a try, and let's enter here that it should be updated not on 23rd of any month or any day of the month, but on the first day of the month. What will happen then? The software tells us that this indicator was not updated on time. Yes, because we had data for December, but we don't have data for January yet. And we can change the situation. We can enter some data for January. Now it's on schedule. Another typical situation is when someone is trying to add more data into a scorecard than this person have, and trying to enter some data for future dates, like for February. And the software will display this status in this case, updated ahead of schedule. So you might want to track this. And as always, you can use the Analysis tab, where you have much more information about updates interval, like, for example, in how many days this indicator should be updated, its status, its last update, and next update dates. Another improvement that we did to the software is a strategy map wizard that you have here. You will find that some interface of this wizard was improved a little bit. It's not just about improving the interface, and we have added some new features. As you might have noticed that here all business goals and all business goals have KPIs aligned with them. And for example, these business goals also have an initiative with this small icon aligned with them. Sometimes you need to have all these details. Let me change it to some wider. Sometimes you might need to have all these details, and sometimes you might want to have only business goals without KPIs, without aligned initiatives. And now you have this option. You actually have this drop list with many options, like if you want to add mission statement, if you want to add strategic SIMS legend, and so on and so forth. And two new options is if you want to have aligned indicators and aligned initiatives on your strategy map. So I can create, and now I have a strategy map without this. And just a friendly notice that actually in the software you can have several maps, and one map can be with initiatives, and another map can be without initiatives, and without aligned indicators. And you can update them, and the software will remember the options, your choice of the options. For example, I'm changing it and updating it, and I have the same data. Another big improvement from the viewpoint of usability in the use of export to MS Excel. Imagine a situation when you have your scorecard in BSC Designer, and you want to organize data entry for a scorecard. And one way to do this is to use a template in MS Excel. I'm selecting KPIs, export values, and I want a full document, not just one indicator. And it's clicking next by use default options and waiting a few moments for a spreadsheet to be created. Now, what's the difference? The difference is that Excel file that you have is a little bit more user-friendly for editing. So you can you can edit some data directly here, or you can use this the same approach if you want to create a template, a kind of template, and use this template with your users. For example, right now we have this file with data. So we have values for all indicators, but we also can do the same thing, export values, full document, but we can use this checkbox to export indicators without data. So you see that you have the same document, but you don't have data, and you have some fields that you can fill in, and later use the import function to get this data back into BSC Designer. That is useful when you, for example, can create such an Excel spreadsheet and send it to your employees, to your colleagues, and ask them to fill it regularly, fill it monthly, and your colleague might fill, for example, values fields, and send you back this document, and you will be able to import the data from that document. Another improvement that actually was suggested by one of our users is a different way of how software treat so-called binary indicators. So what is a binary indicator? It's an indicator that actually has two states. One state is 0% performance, and another state is 100% performance. And to explain this feature, let me change the target to, let's say, 40. Now, when the value of this indicator is below 40, its performance will be 0. So 39, it's 0. And when I'm hitting 40, its performance becoming 100, 45, and so on. The idea is that in this case, as you can see on this chart, all values below target, like it's explained here, all values below target will be treated as values that are corresponding to the 0 performance, and always values more than target, more equals than target, will be corresponding to the value, to the performance of 100%. That's the idea of binary indicator. The same can be used for minimizing. So now all values that are above target are associated with 0 performance, and all values that are below target are actually giving us 100% performance. It's useful to have such indicators in some cases, so good idea to know that now we have it in the software. Another improvement is the way the software treats these charts on the right. First of all, as you know, in the software we have containers and we have indicators. So now it's an indicator, and if I will add some child items, it will be a container. Have a look at the charts that are displayed here. So for the container, by default it's displayed this chart, this pie diagram, and for the items, for indicators, by default is displayed this diagram. And what we introduce in the software is now that the software will remember your choice for this diagram. So by default it's the one that I showed you before, but you can customize it. And it's actually easier. For example, I'm selecting this KPI 1 and I want to see this chart here. And that's it. So for KPI 2 I still have this gauge chart, and for KPI 1 I have this overview chart. And the same can be used for perspectives for containers. So, for example, if for this very container it makes much more sense this bar chart, I can choose it, and now the software will remember my choice for this very container. Some of these improvements were introduced into the BSC Designer Online as well. So log into your account and check out the features that are there in BSC Designer Online. And one of the most important things that if you work with BSC Designer, you're active user of BSC Designer, and you think that there is some features that we need to add, please send us a message. And it's really help, because many of the improvements that I mentioned before were actually the result of feedback that we have got from our users. So if you want to see some improvement, let us know, and we'll do our best to introduce these requirements into the software. Finally, all active users, those who have bought their license less than 1 year before, can download the latest version of the software directly. Those who are using older license might need to buy an update, and for this please contact us and we'll send you a link to the page where you can buy an update. And those who have tried BSC Designer before but have never bought any license, you can drop us a message and we can generate a temporary code for you, so you can download the latest version of BSC Designer and give it a try. Because as you know, we are introducing a lot of features on a monthly basis, and now the software is really improved compared to the versions that you might have tried 1 or 2 years before. Thank you very much and have a good day.